Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary and today's video is going to be 24 books that I want to read in 2024. I'm tentatively saying that this is 24 books. This is like 24-ish books that I'm planning on reading in the next year. And I've got this split into several categories. So the first is series that I want to continue or start and read. The second category is books that I want to reread this year. And the third category is just general books. All of these books, barring one, I believe, are books that I own currently. And that's something that I've been trying to prioritize with my reading, is reading books that I already own. Because I do, as you can see, this whole top shelf is books that I own that I have not read yet. And then I have the 24 books next to me that I'm planning on reading this year. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into the books. These aren't really in any particular order, but I will kind of talk about the series books together. And I'm hopefully going to talk about the rereads together. So I'm going to start with books that are neither of those things. The first book that I want to read in 2024 is The Stranger by Albert Camus. This is a really short philosophy book, I believe, and I've put this on a couple of TBRs because it is so short, but I have not yet read it. This is actually my husband's copy. He had to read this for school, I think, and so I want to read it since I've been saying I was going to read it, and I want to finally get to it. So this is book one that I'm hoping to read in the coming year. Keeping with the short books theme, I want to read The Witches this year by Roald Dahl. This is a children's book, I think, about witches. I know that Roald Dahl is like a beloved children's book author. I believe he wrote the James and the Giant Peach and then the BFG, neither of which I've read, but I have seen adaptations for those. So I am excited to read this, see if he's for me. I don't know if it's like a fairy tale or what, and I believe it has, yes, little illustrations throughout. This should be, again, another quick book to read, and I'm hoping to read this next fall. Another book that I have, I believe, put on a TBR before, but still have not read, The Shining by Stephen King. This is a wintry book, and I'm pretty sure it follows a family who moves to the Overlook Hotel, I think is what it's called. I could be mixing that up with something else, but I want to say it's the Overlook Hotel. I think it's on the Pacific Northwest, maybe? I don't really know. But it's like a hotel that's seasonal, and so they're moving there in the off season to take care of the hotel because Jack, I think, is the father's name. And it's about him going mad, but also it's about his son who has this sight that I think they call The Shining, where he can see like ghosts and things. I have seen the adaptation of this as well, but this is one of those books that I want to read. I got it last year for Christmas, I think, and I still have not read it. So I'm hoping to read it probably next winter, but I do want to read this year because I want to read it. I've heard it's very scary. I've also heard that it's one of Stephen King's better books. I have read several of Stephen King's works before, and I sort of have like mixed feelings about him as an author. I love his concepts, but typically I don't love his books. So I'm hoping I enjoy this one. We will see. Moving on to another like modern classic that I've been saying I was going to read for a while, A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. I've heard this book is so sad. I don't know exactly what it's about, and I don't know if it actually has a summary on it. It says, Owen Meany, the only child of a New Hampshire granite quarrier, believes he is God's instrument. He is. This is John Irving's most comic novel, yet Owen Meany is Mr. Irving's most heartbreaking character. So I do want to read this. I believe this is the same author of Cider House Rules, which I own, I think. I do own it, and it is by John Irving. That is not on my list for this year. It's like back here. Ooh, this one. This book. Yeah, that book. But I do want to read this book in 2024. The next book I'm hoping to read in 2024 is West with Giraffes by Linda Rutledge. I bought this recently. It says it's an emotional, rousing novel inspired by the incredible true story of two giraffes who made headlines and won the hearts of Depression-era America. I believe this story is about people having to transport giraffes from one zoo to another across the U.S. during the Depression. I don't know much more than that, but I do really want to read this. Giraffes are probably my favorite animal. They're one of my favorite animals, but it has a giraffe on the back. And I'm really excited to read this one. The next book on this list is Jacqueline Woodson's Red at the Bone. This has been on my TBR forever. I bought a copy sort of recently. I think I bought it within the past couple of months. I don't know if I did a book haul with those books that I bought. Might have been in a vlog somewhere, but I did purchase this. I love this cover. It reminds me of a couple other covers of books that have come out more recently. I don't know when this book came out. I think 2018, but don't quote me on that. But this book is one of those multi-generational family stories. So it starts with like an unexpected teen pregnancy in the beginning, and then I believe it follows the daughter who is the result of that pregnancy and her family lines. I'm really excited to read this one because again, it's pretty short, and multiple generations of a family is one of my favorite things in books. So I hope I really like this one. Another fall book, witchy book that I want to read that I could have read this year and did not. The Babysitter's Coven by Kate Williams. This, I believe, is the start to a series. I don't know if I will continue in the series. I don't know if it can be read as a standalone, but I think it's similar to like The Craft, where it's about like a group of girls who are trying to have witchy abilities. And I think that there's a new girl in town who enables them to do this. Again, very similar to The Craft, if you see that movie. I really like that movie. I didn't like it the first time I watched it, but I rewatched it this year and I like it a lot more. And it's about Esme Pearl, who is 17 years old and she has a babysitting club. So I didn't read the Babysitter's Club books when I was a kid. I think I was like just in between the age where like the original books came out and I think my sisters read them. And then I know they have new books out now, but I just wasn't in the proper age group when those books were coming out for either of those. So I have not read those, but I am pretty excited to read this one. I also love this cover. I think it's so pretty with like the pinks and the purples. So I hope to read this again next fall. Another book that is the start of a series, I believe, The Dry by Jane Harper. This is the Aaron Falk series, and this is a procedural. I do own 2 of these. So I own this, and then I own Force of Nature, which I believe is the second one. It's right here. I'm only planning on reading the first one. That's all I'm saying I'm gonna read of this series in 2024, but it's by Jane Harper. She is an Australian author, and she writes really character-driven mystery thrillers, but like they sort of, I feel, are more like character-driven mysteries, but they're not mysteries in the sense of like you're solving a crime like Agatha Christie style, if that makes sense. I'm not very good at describing this, but I know Leanne from Literary Diversions loves the Aaron Falk series, and I don't know how many books there are, but I believe it is a completed series. So if I like this one, I will pick up the second one and then move on from there. But I am really interested to read this one. I'm a little nervous about this one because I don't love procedurals, but I do like Jane Harper's writing style. I read another book by her, which The Lost Man, I think is what it's called. And I love books set in Australia, where Australia and like the desert is its own character type. I don't know if it's going to be that way in this one, but it definitely was in The Lost Man. I have a couple of nonfictions that I'm excited to read. I want to read Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe. I read another Patrick Radden Keefe that I didn't super love for Nonfiction November, I believe last year, not this past year, but the year before. And I wanted to read this one, but I didn't have an audiobook of it, and the other one had an audiobook in my library, so that was easier for me at the time. But I do really want to prioritize reading this book. I don't know if I'll save it for November, but I want to read it this coming year. And the subtitle is A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland. I believe this is about the IRA, and I'm really interested to read about that. I don't know a ton about the IRA and Northern Ireland splitting from regular Ireland and how that all went down, but I'm very interested to read another book about it. I believe this is about a woman who gets kidnapped, and yeah, a 38-year-old mother of 10 was dragged from her Belfast home by masked intruders, her children clinging to her legs. They never saw her again. And so I think it's about like the aftermath of that, and it's, I think, considered true crime. So I'm excited to read this one. Another nonfiction that I want to read is We Came, We Saw, We Left by Charles Whelan. And I believe this is a family that just rented an RV and drove around for a year. And I'm really excited to read about that. That's something that like I very much romanticize in my head. And I had a friend in high school whose family did like, they flew out somewhere, rented an RV, and then drove down, I think, either from Southern California up through like the Redwood Forest and did all of the whatever and ended up in Yellowstone, or the reverse. I can't remember how they did it, but they saw a bunch of national parks, and that's something that I really want to do. So maybe not that extensively, but they did like 3 months in this RV, which just sounds super fun. So this is what this reminds me of, and I just think this would be a really fun read. Again, on the nonfiction book train, I have Beautiful Country Burn Again by Ben Fountain. And this, I believe, is like a brief history of early America, and then he's comparing what happened during the Revolutionary War and then possibly during the Civil War to like the political climate of today. I have mentioned that I don't love reading politically heavy books that are based in real politics, but I think because this has a heavy history lean, I might be okay with it. It is pretty long, but I think a big part of the end is the index. Oh, not that big, actually. The index just starts here. So most of this is actually a book, but I'm excited to read this one. I think this must be like an old library book cover. That's why it's all shiny. But yes, this is on my list of things to get to this year. I think this is the Washington Monument, but it looks like a match. That's pretty clever. I don't think I realized that until right now. Moving away from nonfiction for just a second, I also have The Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen, which I bought because I liked the cover, full disclosure. But It's, I believe, historical fiction. The inside flap says it's December 23rd, 1971, and heavy weather is forecast for Chicago. Russ Hildebrandt, the associate pastor of a liberal suburban church, is on the brink of breaking free of a marriage he finds joyless, unless his wife, Marion, who has her own secret life, beats him to it. Their oldest child, Clem, is coming home from college on fire with moral absolutism, having taken an action that will shatter his father. Clem's sister, Becky, long the social queen of her high school class, has sharply veered into the counterculture, while their brilliant younger brother, Perry, who's been selling drugs to 7th graders, has resolved to be a better person. So I think it's about each of the siblings and their like life choices, and it's just a family story. I like family stories, so I'm hoping I would like this one, but we shall see. And then the last fiction book that is a standalone that I'm wanting to read is The Plot by Jean Humph Correlitz. And this is a book about a guy who I think is a teacher or a professor, and one of his students has a manuscript that he's like helping workshop, and then that student dies, and so he publishes it as a book. Similar to Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, except for I don't think this tackles the publishing industry. I think this is more like somebody knows that he took this, and it becomes a thriller based on that. So it's interesting that there were a few books that came out around the same time as The Plot that have like a similar concept. And I've actually seen a movie that has the same concept as this, that's from like the 90s. It wasn't a very good movie. I can't remember what it was called. Something to do with like A Murder of Crows or something like that. But yeah, similar. But I think in that book, it was like a crime novel, and then the crime happened in real life. And so the guy who had stolen the manuscript got accused of committing the crime. I don't remember how it turned out, but yeah, I'm excited to read that because I think that that kind of plot is fun. Now I'm going to talk about the series that I want to start and or continue. And these are all books that I own, okay? So I own the first 3 Game of Thrones books. Now, I've always said that I didn't want to read a Game of Thrones until George R.R. Martin finished the series. However, I'm sort of reneging on that promise to myself. I think I'm going to at least read a Game of Thrones this year. I would like to read all 3 of these 3 just because we own them. And my husband really likes the series and he loved the TV show. And I don't know if he loved the last season. I know how it ends in the show, but I don't know that much about the minutia of what's happening. I've heard that there are a lot of characters in these, which is why I think reading them physically is a good idea. However, they're also extremely long. This is over 800 pages, and it's a mass market paperback, which will be a little difficult for me, I think, to read. So I might try to get an audiobook and do immersion reading. We'll see. So my mileage may vary with these 3, but I am tentatively putting all 3 of these on my 24 to read in 2024. The next series I would like to continue in is the Sookie Stackhouse series by Charlaine Harris. So I own all of these. I'm missing one, but I also own the 10th book. I think this is 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I own book 10, and then I own book like 13 or something. So I want to read these. I want to continue in the series since I own them. If I really am disliking it, I will DNF the series. Like, I don't have a problem doing that. But I've enjoyed the ones that I've read. Like, they're not fantastic books. They're just fine. So these, I didn't tell you what Game of Thrones is about because I'm sure you know. And if you don't know, you probably know the same amount that I know. That's why I'm not going into that. But this is a paranormal romance series. The TV series True Blood is based on it, and it's about this waitress in Louisiana named Sookie Stackhouse. And in this world, vampires are real, and they know that they're real, and so they serve them this blood drink that they can get from restaurants and stuff so that they don't have to kill people. But Sookie Stackhouse starts a relationship with this vampire named Bill, and then things sort of go from there. She gets like drawn into his world. So the next one that I have to read is Dead to the World, and then after that we've got Dead as a Doornail, Definitely Dead, Altogether Dead, and From Dead to Worse. So I do want to read these books this year, or at least continue in it. This is pretty ambitious for me, but this is what I'm saying I'm gonna do. Now I have a couple of rereads that I want to get to. Not really in any particular order, but I want to reread The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I also want to continue and read the other Ruth Ware books that I have not read from her backlist. I think there's like The Lion Game that I haven't read, and then something about snowflakes that I haven't read. So I've read most of Ruth Ware's books. I do really like Ruth Ware's books. This and One by One are my favorites by her, but I do want to reread this book because I really enjoyed it the first time I read it, and I want to see if I still like it as much the second time. I think I will, because I like her writing style, and like I know that this is based on The Turn of the Screw, and I've seen a lot of adaptations, remakes, whatever, retellings of that, but I think I'll still enjoy this one. I want to reread The Library Book by Susan Orlean, which is a nonfiction book that I read a couple years ago. It's a true crime book, and at the time I was a little disappointed because it doesn't focus as much as I wanted it to on the definitive nature of the crime. The crime is that this guy allegedly burned down the Los Angeles Public Library. The library did burn down, but it's about this one suspect that she thinks did it. So I want to read this physically because I listened to it as an audiobook last time, and I don't know. I want to like really absorb this book better than I did before because it was really interesting. And the main thing that I think this book really succeeds in, and the reason I want to reread it, is it is about that like crime story sort of. That's what she like went to write when she went to write this book. But it also has a lot of details about the history of libraries in this country, how libraries came to be, like librarians throughout the years, what libraries' different roles were and what they are now. And yeah, I love my library, so I'm really excited to read more about this. Another nonfiction I want to reread is Beneath the Neon, Life and Death in the Tunnels of Las Vegas. So there are tunnels underneath the city of Las Vegas where camps of unhoused people live. And this writer, I think, went down there to see who was living in the catacombs of Vegas. They're not really catacombs, I don't think, but they're like tunnels underneath the city. So I saw a documentary in high school or junior high, I can't remember which now, about this. And then I bought the book to read because of that. And I think I read part of it, but didn't end up finishing it. So I want to fully sit down and read this book now. I'm really interested to see how I'll feel about it now because I think it is like 15 years old. When did this come out? Copyright 2007. So yeah, 16 years old. 17 next year. So I'm excited to see, or I'm interested, I guess, to see what this is going to be like. It's also kind of an odd shape, but it is what it is. I want to reread Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I also want to read Recursion by Blake Crouch. I don't know if it's a mistake to try to read them back to back because I've heard they are very similar, but I love Dark Matter and I just want to reread it. And I've heard Recursion is similar, so I want to read that because I like time travel. This has sort of like a parallel universe thing. This is a sci-fi book about a guy, I think his name's Jason. I don't know, but he gets kidnapped and then gets stuck in this like particle accelerator machine, whatever the machine is, I don't remember, but he ends up he comes out and it's like a different universe. And so he's trying to get back to his original universe. I'm really excited to reread this. And I think that Apple TV is making an adaptation. I think it was supposed to come out this year. As far as I know, it is not out yet. So hopefully they still do that so I can do a book versus adaptation review, having freshly read this. And then the last two books that I'm putting on this TBR are Ninth House. I want to reread Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo because it's been a few years now. This is about Galaxy Stern, who goes by Alex, who has the ability to see ghosts. And so she gets recruited to Yale to join one of their societies. It's called the Ninth House. It's one of the secret societies at Yale. I don't think it's a real secret society, by the way. They do have secret societies in like Ivy League schools, but I don't think this is a real one. But essentially, the premise is that all of the secret societies have like a magical element, but because they use magic, that attracts like ghosts and spirits that are not always friendly. And so they need people like Alex who can see the ghosts and spirits to keep them away from the magic that's happening and keep everybody safe. And that's like her job. There's a little bit of like a romance-ish element in here with Daniel Arrington, I think his name is. They call him Darlington. I think his name is Daniel Arrington though. But I'm excited to read this, and then I want to read the sequel to that, which is Hellbent, which I don't have. I went to Half Price Books today because I wanted to find the paperback is now out in Hellbent, and I didn't buy the hardcover because I wanted these to be able to sit next to each other on the shelf. That's become a thing that I care about, I guess, and because I prefer reading paperbacks, to be honest with you. So I'm still looking for the paperback. I will probably buy it. In the interim, here it is on the screen. Hellbent is the sequel, and I want to read it. I remember this leaving off on a cliffhanger, but I don't exactly remember what happened, so I need to reread Ninth House before I can get to it. So those are the books that I'm planning on reading in 2024. Will I get to all of them? I don't know. But right now I'm going to count them up for you so you can see how many I'm talking about. On that list there are 26 books, which is perfect because if I only end up reading Game of Thrones, that will still be 24. And so there's some leeway in here, you know, give and take. I might read some, I might skip others. We might see how I feel about this and decide not to continue the series. You never know. I don't plan on doing that, but obviously if I plan on doing that, I would just not read any of them. So these are the 24 books that I'm hoping to read in 2024. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books and how you felt about them. Also, let me know if you have books that you're planning on reading in 2024. What are they? 24 books is a lot of books, especially considering I don't physically read that much, but you'll see this is a sneak peek, I guess, to my goals of 2024, which I will do a separate video about in the new year, I think is when I'm doing that. But one of my goals is going to be to complete these books, and another of my goals is to read more of my physically owned books. I do have a number. I'll save that for the goals video. Not even physically owned, to physically read books, because I've been listening to so many audiobooks, and I think I've read like 10 books physically this year, which is not great. So I want to read more physically. I want to physically read more because I own so many books, and I think this is a good place to start. So with that, if you made it to this point of the video, leave a snake emoji, because Ninth House has a snake on it. And like this video if you liked it, subscribe to my channel if you have not already and you want to see more videos from me. I do try to post 2 videos every single week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!